Today we are interviewing Rub Jupp from Brightstar, a fellow Essex man and winner of Personality of the Year, I think, last year for the mortgage industry, weren't you, Rob?
Well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't say much about the mortgage industry if I've won Personality of the Year, doesn't it? Yeah, I was very flattered at the same awards event as you won Best Small Broker, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, so to give people a little bit more of an introduction to yourself, I know obviously Brightstar, do you want to do a quick 30-minute, 60-second elevator pitch, whatever you want to do to introduce people to you and Brightstar?
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. So I'll try and do it in 30 seconds, not 30
However
minutes.
long you want, mate.
You know, you might regret saying that. So I started Brightstar back in late 2010. I was out of work at the time for the first time in my career with two very young children, big mortgage and, you know, very little prospects of getting an income that would generate the lifestyle that I wanted. So I'd always had businesses until the previous 2 years I'd sold, and I decided to have one last spin of the dice and started Brightstar. And there was two of my co-workers from my previous companies I took on, Brad and Kit. They joined me in January 2011, and at that point there was no specialist lending market. The market was closed. It wasn't dead, it was just closed. And we just wanted to, in a small way, I guess, to do enough to get into the second year of trading. That was the sum of our ambition. What any of my people tell you, this was the sum of the ambition at the time. We did get into the second year just about. It wasn't, you know, champagne and roses from word go. It was really, really tough. And we've done a bit to try and help open or reopen the specialist lending market since. So the business now, just almost 10 years later, has almost 70 people in it. We are the largest of what we do in the country. We have 4 out of 5 intermediaries in the country can access us via a contract with their partner or their network or their mortgage club. We've won 85 actually national awards since that time, so we're reasonably decorated. We have this business here in Billericay, which is Brightstar, and we also have a high net worth London and Manchester finance debt broker businesses called Serious Property Finance. One's in central London in the city and one's in central Manchester. So that's the group. We turn over in excess of £10 million per year, and we complete just over £1 billion worth of specialist debt every year. So we're a reasonable size, but we're not too big not to care and give good customer service and everything else.
And that's serving the broker market, isn't it? It's B2B, not B2C. So,
yeah, Brightstar is a B2B specialist distributor, and Sirius is more of a B2C, you know, debt advisory broker. So, yeah, we deal with around, well, in a bad month, 2,500 leads a month. In a good month, upwards of 4,000. That comes from intermediaries right across the corners of the UK, and you know, we have 5 siloed divisions, so each division can only do one product line. For example, if you contacted the buy-to-let team, that's all they do. They won't work with any lenders that, you know, residential mainstream guys should have anyway. So buy-to-let, for example, we wouldn't work with TMW or BM because we would expect you guys to have that. We'll deal with smaller lenders with, you know, small appetites to do, you know, specialist, higher margin, lower volume type transactions.
Yeah, I like that. And before I want to go back and kind of delve into how you've got the business mindset that you've got, and obviously having built something so massive in the space of a 10-year period. But I'm intrigued, you mentioned there about the model that you have in relation to having silos of each individual product area. What advantage do you think that brings to, you know, a business in financial services generally? You know, I've done something very similar to give you context. I've got an insurance advisor, a will writer, a commercial advisor. How do you think? Why do you think brokers should do that?
Well, I mean, your example there perfectly demonstrates that. So I think with all of the areas that we cover and all the areas you just described there, they're very specific areas of expertise. And this adage, a bit of a lazy saying, but sort of jack of all trades and master of none. You've got to be really careful as an intermediary not to become a busy fool. And your clients will know if you're not an expert at what you do. They'll find out, and they probably won't work with you again and lose confidence. So, I think within our given areas, they're all so dynamic and unique that, one person can only really fully excel if you know just those one products. You'll know, what stuff's published, what stuff's not published, and you'll instinctively know what is a deal that can be done very, very quickly to a deal that just can't be done. And I think it's, time saving and expertise and everything else. So that has been the mainstay of our business. When we pioneered the change a year and a half, so it would be the middle of 2012. At that point, up to that point, so in the first year and a half of Brightstar, all of my guys and girls were doing all specialist product areas. And one day I came into the office and I said to them, right, guys, we're going to change on Monday. Each of you are either going to do second charges, residential mortgages, or bridge and commercial. Right, they're the product lines. And I had absolute uproar. It was like the 17th century peasants' revolt. It was kind of burning effigies of me in the car park, and they're all going, "Look, you're mad. What are we doing this for?" And I said, do you know what? Because we have to be market leaders. We have to be market innovators. And we will not be able to do that unless we get these products, like experts. On the Monday morning, sod's law, the first phone call that came in was to one of the guys who was then on the second charge team. And it was a £5 million bridging loan from one of his brokers that he would normally have done all day long. And he passed it. And I think he actually pulled the phone out of the wall and threw it in my head, actually, I seem to remember. We're a bit different in those days. I said to him, look, if I'm wrong, I'll be wrong really quickly, and I'll be the first to admit I'm wrong. And in the first month of trading, we doubled the best month we've ever done up to that point. And that's really been the mainstay of our business. And I have to say, without sounding big-headed, the template, the blueprint of every specialist distributor and specialist broker that has created a business since that point. They all use the same model now.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I think one thing that I know that some brokers listening to this are going to have concern over, it's going to be a case exactly as you mentioned there. Well, hang on a minute, I've got this lead, and if I'm passing it to them, I'm losing my cut of my percentage of commission because I'm giving that money away. I don't want to give everything. It's a scarcity mindset to hold on to everything, isn't it? So do you have any kind of cross-referral commissions internally within your teams, or how does that kind of work in your advice?
So you give us a client, Gary, that client remains your client. It's not our client. We have a transactional relationship with that client that is term bound specifically for the term of that transaction. And what we find is that the first thing we'll ask the advisor is, do you want us to take the advice and recommendation, or do you want to do it? It's up to you. Now, obviously, on some of those product lines, their network principals will say, well, you can't because, you're only allowed to do this or that. If it is advice and recommendation, like it is on mortgage side, i.e. the advisor does it, it's fine. We simply offer them a range of options, and then they take the advice and recommendation. It's their client. We don't sell protection. We don't sell GI. We have no interest in communication ever again to these customers in the nicest possible way. And then, or we take them and we do the products. We find that if we do the latter, i.e. we have a handoff with the system, we pay exactly the same amount, but we've got a 3 times higher chance of completing that transaction if we control that. And it's just down to that point I made about 10 minutes ago. You are going to struggle to, how can I put this without offending anyone? I don't suppose I can. You're going to struggle to be able to do the job of those product lines better than any of my people if you're a whole of market mortgage advisor, because you've got so many other areas to deal with. In the same way as I wouldn't be able to do a will writing service as good as your will writer. It's the same principle, or your protection person.
Yeah. Do you have any battles internally with your team passing to each other and sort of having to give up a £500,000 bridge to the bridging expert when they're the buy to let person? Do you get any kind of
No, because what happens now is it's very, very with the number of calls and leads we've got coming in. Remember, I said 2,500, 4,000 every single month. We have to have a very structured silo. So the phone will ring. You'll be asked what product line you want. You'll press the number. It puts you straight through to that team. So my people will only speak to the broker with that inquiry, with that type of product line. Very, very occasionally, it might be that one of the guys will be doing a product and they've exercised all they can and they're gone, you know what, I can't help you, but I think there might be someone in this division that can. I'm going to refer you over. But no, it's because we're a very, very strong team, a very, very strong ethic, and everyone has the same buy-in of the business. Trying to get the sharing of data and information is really not an issue at all. And we work into quite big open plan floors, trading floors. So there's no people in offices. Everyone is on silo desks. You can hear each other. It's a very sort of buzzy, noisy, environment.
Yeah, nice. It reminds me of the old Tyler business, like Alexander Hall, when I used to work there, and it was sort of 70 advisors all out in open plan, and one half was advice and the other one was admin. And it's definitely a fun and buzzy environment, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the AX is very, very similar, actually. And, some people decide they want to wear headsets because it means that some people will speak to advisors while standing up. Some people will do other things. I've got one guy that sort of does his calls on a Pilates ball because that's where he's comfortable. So it is a bit weird at times, yeah.
Yeah. Do you still go with corporate, or are they allowed to wear what they want, or how is it in that?
No, so we don't have, like you mentioned, your previous employer, a very, very strong corporate dress code because we're not client facing. So we do come to work in nice shirts. Believe it or not, this is deemed as a nice shirt. You probably do disagree. We do wear.
Nice one, mate. Nice one.
Oh, bless your heart. Well, it's the first time I've worn this. It's particularly for your podcast. So there we go.
There you go.
Special offer down Primark. So we wear jeans. We won't wear t-shirts. We have a dress policy, but it's very casual.
Yeah, I think that's definitely changing over the years, isn't it? From back in the day, I think it's definitely had a bit of an upgrade, shall we say. So in terms of, we've got a lot about Brightstar there. I'm really intrigued as to what was that moment that made you decide to actually join financial services? What were you doing before? And then why did you decide to, and when was it as well, actually? When did you come and join us?
So I think then it was the same as it is now, that unfortunately the mortgage and financial services industry is not overly attractive to many people, which is a crying shame, because what you also find is once you're in it, you very, very rarely leave it. It's one of those career sort of situations. But I was a graduate back in 1992. I left a really good university with a pretty decent degree, and I just decided I would go and work for British Airways as a graduate trainee. So I went for one interview, and I got one rejection, which was the one interview I got. So I needed to go into work. I did a year in sales to start off with, where I was. Do you remember? I don't suppose you do. You're far too young for this. Do you remember CFAX and Oracle? Do you remember that? I
remember CFAX. Yeah. I'm only 10 years off you, Rob. I'm only 10 years off.
Yeah, well, you look good for it. So Oracle was the commercial version, which one of the things you could do was to buy teletext holidays overseas. So I worked for a flight company selling flights to Malaga for £69, and it was a good year on working very hard for not a lot of money. And one day I was in an estate agent in Essex, where my girlfriend, my now wife of many years, lived, one Sunday actually, and got talking to the mortgage advisor. He said, "You'd be really good at this." I said, "On what basis?" He gave me some sort of cock and ball story, but the basis was that he had a £500 referral fee, I later found out. And 4 weeks later, I was a mortgage consultant with no qualifications, no experience whatsoever, which was 4 or 5 days on a central training course, and then you were good to go. And by some sense of miracle, I was good at it. I was good at talking to people and offering them ways of owning their own property. There wasn't a buy-to-let market then, it was just homeowners. I sat in an estate agent. I became one of the best in the country. I then became a very young regional manager and then director. At the age of 27 was my first of many midlife crises, and I think I'm up to about 10 now, actually. And I decided to start my own business. I come from an entrepreneurial background, nothing too exciting. My mum and dad owned a chip shop. That's what they did. That was the family business. Worked hard, 60, 70 hours a week, 6 days a week. So we grew up with a spirit of hard work, and also with this concept that, you could be something different to everybody around you if you worked for yourself. And that always stayed in my mind from a very young age. And therefore I was always probably destined one day to start my own business. And that's how I started. That was the first business I had back at the age of 27. I'm almost a couple of weeks away from being 49. I realise I look somewhat older than that. Yes.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's 1 year away from the big 5-0, the same way I'm 1 year away from the big 4-0. So it's.
I'm very happy for you.
Yeah. It's so 27. You started the first business, and that was as a self-employed mortgage broker.
Yeah. So that was the top advisor in the company I worked for, and me decided to start our own mortgage brokers. We got a small group of 4-branch estate agency chain in the South End on Sea and Essex area. I went back to seeing clients again. You don't lose it. I'd missed it. And then we grew that business back until 2004. I think we had at that point 75 to 80 advisors all employed. It's a big business with one of the top 100 firms in the country. And then I decided to diversify into what was known as packaging back in the day, and started a part of the business that dealt with the non-conforming market, and it was only for our own sales team. And then one thing led to another. So effectively, that's it. I've been in the mortgage industry since 1993. So next year was at 28 years. I should need a calculator to punch that in. I've never been good with numbers. 28 years. And, I'll for sure be in this industry until whenever retirement happens. It's a brilliant industry. For those that have got a half an eye of voyeurism to see what's around, I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, and when you started your business at the age of 27, did you start out with the intention of building a 75 to 80 person advising team and becoming one of the top 100? How did that whole journey happen? Because that's insane.
No. If I said I was, I would have done. I'd be lying to you. It was the back of a fag packet. It was right. Let's be our own bosses. Let's start our own business. That will give us far more freedom, far more independence. The reality is it gives you possibly far less freedom and far less independence, and you work very much harder for a foreseeable period of time. And then, the harder you work, the luckier you get, the more successful you get. I think luck does play a part in it. Timing's got to be right. I was fortunate, I guess, to be working in the late 90s, early noughties. Buy-to-let came about sort of in the turn of the millennium and started building. I got into that in a reasonable way early doors. And, I've the thing about riding on the crest of a wave, all waves do crash. And the flip side of that is back in 2007, the global financial crisis happened. And I went from having a business that was valued in a quantum of tens of millions to 15 months later, on September the 14th, 2008, when Lehman Brothers collapsed, being worth nothing. So, that's the flip side, right? It's not all fireworks, champagne and flowers. There are some challenges. This is now my third contraction market that we're currently working in. I was hoping the last would be my last, but there we go. This one, I think, hit us from nowhere, didn't it?
Definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. No, I don't think anyone could have predicted this, could they? At the end of the day, it's a crazy world that we're now living in. But Hey presto, it's I did very similar back in 2008 when the credit crunch hit. I diversified and did life insurance as the sort of the next thing to do. Having only been self-employed for 2 years at that stage, it's pivoting and it's adjusting and training, isn't it, to what's going on at the economic time.
Yeah, you have to adapt, and the one thing that you never do have to change is that the biggest secret to any form of success is just damn simple hard work. Just lots of graft, lots of perspiration, unsociable hours, working early, finishing late, working weekends, working bank holidays. I have never met anyone apart from one or two lottery winners ever been successful without one thing, and that's oodles of hard work.
Yeah. Now, how do you deal with, because one of the things I see with a lot of my mentees and a lot of listeners to the podcast is that element of work-life balance. And you mentioned sacrifice there and long weekends and bank holidays and all that sort of stuff. Was that because of what was the decision and what was the guiding light that kind of made you go down that path? Because I know a lot of people will hold themselves back from doing that because they want to maintain the work-life balance. Is it just something ingrained in you from seeing your parents, or where does it come from?
Yeah, probably two words: social mobility. The desire. I mean, let's be fair, Gary. We live in arguably the most materialistic and motivated county that exists, certainly in England. We're surrounded by the nouveau riche, those that have worked really hard in order to move to a nicer house and put their kids to a good school. And it's kind of infectious, really. You kind of look at that and you go, I want some of that. Now the challenge is very much work-life balance. And may I say, after being in business for almost 3 decades, I haven't got it quite right. I'm not sure that I'd ever get it completely right. I've got it as right as I've got it. And I try and find, times and zones, and almost like, there is a time when I walk through the front door where my phone will be put to one side and will be turned off because I don't trust myself. And I will put myself wholly into, spending time with my 2 teenage sons and my wife. But there will be a time when they'll go to bed, and there will be maybe a half an hour slot where I can just check out if there's any traffic that needs my support on. Now, does that mean that I'm more successful because I'm doing that? No, it's just my routine. It doesn't affect anyone, And also, when we're on holidays, I have more recently been better at having a few days when I have able to switch off, and I have organised myself sufficiently well to have my co-workers dealing my workload. But really, for me, there's no issue with looking at your messages at the end of each day and making sure that you do keep in contact with those that need to be kept in contact with. And I've done that for so long. I still feel that my families can have a holiday, I can have a break. Yep, I can still trade successfully throughout. And on the flip side, dare I say it, we're all taking more holidays where we were until COVID than our parents ever dreamt of doing. So they might not be the 2-week holidays like our mum and dad's did where you can completely switch off, but there might be 2 or 3 of those a year where you are going away. So it's a quid pro quo.
Yeah, I get that. Definitely. It's I felt that I ended up recruiting somebody, a PA, last year, just when I went on holiday, because I was spending too much time doing admin stuff that actually someone else can do, that my wife was going nuts over the fact of how much I had to do during that holiday. And I think you've got to be identifying that, haven't you, at the end of the day?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm quite intrigued in both. Now you've got 70 and 80 people within Brightstar, and you've had that before within your brokerage. In going from what was obviously just you in the beginning and a small team, what were kind of the incremental challenges that you face? I look at business almost like a stair ladder, a staircase. Yeah. You get really, or raising a child, they run the routine. It's really good. You work on the routine. They allow you to use it for about a week's time, and then something else crops in. I think business works in a very similar fashion. Everything just seems to twist like an engine, and then all of a sudden the part breaks. What are the kind of stages of your journey you think that are key to wind out for going to 70 people?
So you talked about a staircase. I think that is the most visual thing that you can have. It's and I call it conquering the plateau. So it's making sure that each time you have a big steep rise of growth like a staircase would give you, there invariably is going to be a fairly long period of minimal growth. It's not like that all the time, otherwise it becomes dangerous and unsustainable. So the challenge is conquering that plateau, that sort of period of nothing after big growth, and saying, okay, we now need to kick on. Does the position where we're in make us vulnerable? Does it make us vulnerable because we aren't resourced well enough in certain areas that we believe are going to be growth? And just instinctively working in those areas. And then I think the biggest challenge, and we haven't always got this right. Anyone that hasn't made a mistake in recruitment doesn't employ anyone, or is a liar. So it's much easier to get it wrong than it is to get it right. But we have now, and for a while we have got recruitment absolutely bang on. We have a very structured and disciplined recruitment process that involves a lot of people seeing every individual applicant to make sure we get it right. So, getting the wrong people in is counterproductive than getting no one involved. So, recruitment is really, really key. And just making sure you don't just take people on for the sheer ego hell of it. You take people on when you need people. You give them the adequate resources. You give them lots of PD, lots of motivation, a great career path. You have an open door policy. There's lots of meritocracy, so that anybody, whatever background they're in and whatever ethnicity or sex or gender differential they just can get on if they're good. And that was 2017. What am I talking about? When I was 17, I did A-level sociology, and this term of meritocracy hit me for the first time, and it was talking about the American dream, that anyone can get on, the Henry Ford, example. And I was totally mesmerised, because I was going, right, this was in late 80s Britain. Britain was as far away from a meritocracy as existed. You had to be private schooled, you had to be old school tired to get on. And I just thought, if I ever had the chance of doing something in my life, I'd remember this meritocracy, and I'd remember the positive effect that it would have on the culture of the business that I would be lucky enough to one day perhaps own. And to this day, it's in my head every time I look at someone. It's right. Can they move on? Can they do well? How are we going to give them the resources to do so? You probably have to be more passionate about the people around you than you do about yourself, actually, because you're one beating heart. The whole of your team is not 70 hearts. It's one beating heart, getting the right vibe.
And how do you maintain that vibe then, particularly as it grows? And obviously the message from you at the top of the tree, so to speak, dilutes the more layers become underneath that. How do you keep that culture alive? And I suppose, have you got vision, mission and values in the business?
Yes, we have. We also have a full-time director of people development who is a master's from Cambridge University, who spends every day of her week with our staff in terms of coaching, one-to-ones. We do psychology and psychosometric testing with our people to understand their skill sets and their personality traits. And all those things were, I think, the reason why we did well in the Sunday Times Best Companies to Work For, by winning that set of awards in 2019, coming first, and in 2020, a few months ago, also winning that for an unparalleled second time. And I think that shows what we do. But I think also the culture has to be coming from the top. So we have to, and I have to be the living embodiment of that. If Claire preaches one thing and I deliver something else, then it's not going to work. So that culture has to be the culture that we all buy into. And it's just the simple things, treating people the way you like to be treated yourself, giving people great customer service, being honest and transparent. If there's a problem, saying to someone, I've got a problem, and explaining the reasons why. Making sure that we sort of manage conflict, which is always there in a very high octane environment. And we work really carefully on mental health issues to make sure that We give all of our co-workers support for them or their families when it's necessary and appropriate to do so. And just look at each of our people, not as cost centers, but as human beings, and say that all human beings are fundamentally flawed. I am as well, you know, and we will go wrong. We will break. We will fall over. And we need to make sure we have an environment, a pastoral environment. So when that happens, we can get people, you know, well quickly.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something that we're going to be facing in the not too distant future, isn't it? Having had the world on furlough, or, you know, not working, and people going back to jobs that they hate, and all this environment, there's potentially going to be worse coming out of it than it was going into it.
I couldn't agree more. And I think what we're seeing right now is this phenomenon of COVID anxiety, where people are unhappy to come back into a recognized workplace because they're scared. And we have to, whether we think, you know, we believe in that, or we think it's right or wrong, it's happening. We have to just understand that with some people is a real issue.
Yeah. And a couple of things you picked up, or to pick up on a couple of things you said about needing people. How do you know when the right time to recruit somebody or needing someone else on the team is? How do you identify that? Because I know that's something a lot of brokers, self-employed ones in particular, struggle with, taking on their first recruit, or when to scale.
So it's much easier with a bigger business, I have to say, because we've got oodles of MI that back up, you know, call volumes. You know, is there a noticeable contraction in the amount of time it's taken us to answer a call? I mean, these things are really granular and really dull and boring, but a bigger, busy business are really important. You know how productive your people are. Are you finding that they are less productive because they're getting bogged down by stuff that's making them less productive? So, I mean, a lot of it can be driven in terms of improvement via technology. So you can have telecom, or you can have IT, or you can have a database which gets information much quicker. But there is a tipping point, and generally, you see a market. I've always been a great believer in, let's not wait. Let's not get to a market and then, you know, play it and be a bit half-hearted. Let's look at that market. Let's research it. Let's pilot it. Let's mystery shop it. Let's understand it really well. And then if it's for us, let's get the appropriate investment of resources in to do it properly. If you're not going to be looking to be a market leader in what you do, then don't do it. So, you know, a good example of that for us is we looked at the whole later life lending, and, you know, I absolutely am sold that it's a really big opportunity that a lot of people are going to do really well. But we looked at it and we just felt it wasn't for us, and that there was other people in there that could do a better job. So that's what they do. Overseas mortgages is another market that we looked at. We kicked a few tires and we looked at that, and we just felt we weren't going to be able to add any value. So we only invest in opportunities that we believe we can really excel at.
Yeah, key thing that is, without a doubt. It's so important to stay focused, isn't it, at the end of the day, on, like you mentioned right at the very beginning of this, being focused in your silos and in the products that you're offering, and only going ahead with something if you do truly believe in the success of it. And what do you think? And what do you think, having built, you know, multiple businesses now, what do you think the most key areas of a business are that you need to be looking at and monitoring to either, you know, to have good growth?
So you have to, number one, you have to keep an eye on your cash flow. You know, more businesses fail because they run out of cash. Number one, I know that sounds really basic, but you've got to understand that whatever it is you're going to do won't go to plan. You know, you could have some of the best strategic planners in the market, but it really won't go to plan. It might take a little bit longer. It might cost you far more. So you kind of almost hope for the best and plan for the worst. So that's an overused term that's happening a lot as a result of COVID. But that's the first thing. You need to make sure you've got plenty of cash to be able to do things correctly, and be realistic about, you know, the fact that it will probably not go to plan, almost certainly. I think the second thing you also need to do is you need to bet yourself, and actually you've also got to be prepared to step away. We've not gone through with a lot more investments than we've made, where I've looked at something and with those of my exec colleagues and gone, you know what, we're just not going to give value. We're not going to get, you know, minimum top quartile performance, aspirational, top in sector, best in class, because the companies that are doing it are so good that we just really are not going to be able to do that, or it's just not for us. The skill set of people that we would need and the investment we need to make just is not cost effective. So I think the second thing, be prepared to walk away. Don't, if you're committed to something, it takes a much stronger person to say the word no than it does to go through with something because you think the provider is that you got to do it. And the final thing I think is, if you go through with it, you gotta give the appropriate time and resources in it. If you go into anything half-hearted, you'll be disappointed. You'll almost certainly fail. So when you go into something and you've absolutely agreed that that's what you want to do and that's the right thing, you put every single resource that you've got available, and you then become utterly single-minded that you will be successful. And it won't be as quick as you hope it will be, but you're going to stick with it and you're going to see it through.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I've been talking to a lot of my mentees recently about the fact of, your children don't want a half-hearted parent. Your wife generally doesn't, or your partner doesn't want a generally half-hearted partner. And if you're going to go for this over the course of deciding what your business looks like, and then go all in and make sure that it happens. And like you say, could be 1 year, could be 3 years, could be 5 years because of the luck, but enjoy the roller coaster journey,
And Gary, isn't that one of the things in business that makes it so interesting? The ups and downs, the wins and the losses, the good days followed by, sadly, invariably the bad days. I think if you want uncertainty and you want challenge at times to the wit of one's own intellect, running your own business is a perfect place to be.
Yeah. Do you think there's something I've heard banded around on social media, in particular around, you either have it or you don't to become a business owner. It's like one of those things that you're either born with or you can learn. Do you see which side of the fence do you think it kind of sits?
I think I've seen lots of examples of people that would fall in both those camps for me to probably.
Fair enough.
With some people, they're definitely born to be an entrepreneur. I mean, with my kids' cohort now, I'm pretty confident I can spot the kids that will one day run their own businesses just because they're just that way inclined. But similarly, if you've got a good idea and there's a market for your good idea and you can back yourself, you might be the most ill-prepared entrepreneur in history. I mean, there's plenty of really successful business people that you and I will know and deal with that really they're not leaders, they're not even managers, but they're just really good innovators at what they do. So I guess if you're born to be a leader and to run your own business, it's natural and it's easier. But if you're not, there's still a place for you if you've got a great concept and a great idea and you're prepared to graft. Yeah.
It's funny you say that as well. Having got a brokerage that specialises in self-employed people, it amazes me the clients that I speak to who almost appear like they've not got an ounce of business sense or savviness about them, but yet they're running multi-million-pound businesses. And what it tends to be is, like you said, hard graft, but also the ability to understand what their weaknesses are and just getting people who are bloody good at what they're crap at.
Yeah. Well, there we go. You've got to accept, and this is why we're really hot here on personality profiling. Personality profiling is, for me, all about understanding where your gaps are and not to spend resources to get to a point where you'll fill those gaps, but never to a point where you just look over there and that person can do that part of that job you're not very good at much better than you'll ever do it, and much more effectively. And this is the whole, you're familiar with the insights, the color energies, the yellow, the green, the red, the blues, etc., etc. In my management team, my exec team, I've got a red, fiery leader personality, me. I've got a green who's my earthy, good for relationships in turn. They're a pleaser. They're good at harmony. I've got my blue, who's very methodical, very organised, quite unemotional about what they do. And I've got my sunshine yellow, who's my people person, who's the person that will always be happy and smiley and keep people energized. And actually, any one of those colours left on their own is just a disaster. It's just utterly ineffective. But you put them together and you've got a formidable team.
That's incredible. What's that method called, or where can people find out more about that?
So it's something I've used for 20 years. It's the Discovery Insights. A number of training providers use them. It's an old Carnegie business school work, and it's really, really useful. It probably costs, I think the profiling costs probably £90, £100 per person, but it tells you what your real personality strengths are, your conscious and your subconscious and your unconscious personality, and it actually tells you your difficult person is and how to behave and deal with them. And the harmony in the workplace as a result of it is absolutely bang on.
Yeah, and you mentioned there Dale Carnegie. Is there anything else that you've kind of invested in for yourself or for your team from a personal development perspective to become better at what they do, or live a better life, or be, get into personal development?
Yeah, so again, we have a full-time people development director that supports every single member of our team, wherever they're based in the country and whatever job they do. They have at least a session a month with her. And that is all about personal development, not just career development, but personal development, coaching, counselling, making sure that the individual becomes better. We also have corporate memberships of Anxiety UK and Mind, so that we can support our colleagues and their families with support for mental health, which I'm a mental health sufferer, so it's particularly pertinent to me that I have the support available for my people that I have myself. And we all have coaching. I have my own. I have an executive mentor. I see someone who supports me externally, and we all have support. Every single one of us will have some sort of pastoral support, be it career development, be it pastoral development, be it coaching, counselling, be it psychology, whatever it is you need, we'll try and give it to you here if we can.
Yeah, that's great. And how long have you had kind of coaching and mentoring? Do you think that's one of the reasons why you've had the success that you've had over the years? Have you always had that since 27?
No, I saw my first coach back in 2005, and it was like night went into day. I was like, blimey, I've got someone now who is able to support me and help me and mentor me to be better. And often that's just because they've just got a little bit more living in them in terms of their age. Their experiences might be a little bit more, overarching than maybe one's is at any one time. And over a course of the last 15 years, you've mentioned you've got a mentoring group. So have I. I've got people who are generally older, but I've got some younger mentors that I get mentoring support from. But similarly, I also try and put my hat in the ring where I can help and support anyone, whatever they are, competitors, partners, even people I don't know, to try and help them and just do something that makes me feel like I'm a decent human being.
Yeah, is that mostly in financial services or all walks of life? Yeah,
mainly in financial services, particularly on the mental health side. I mean, I'm very much in the dangerous age group. Between you and me is the real dangerous age group. You're sort of late 30s, early 40s for guys with mental health. So, I think this is a really difficult job if you're a guy that has some mental health issues. And I have been, not embarrassed now. I probably was going back a few years when the whole mental health provision was a bit more of a tainted, shall we say. And I've shared that I'm a guy that's had depression probably for 25 years. And I mentor a few people, similar guys, generally with mental health issues. And I get tremendous gratitude, that's the wrong term. I get tremendous
satisfaction,
and satisfaction for doing that. I do get gratitude as well, but that's not what I meant.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's a great feeling. At the end of the day, you've got someone ahead who's helping you, and it's almost like that staircase analogy again. Someone's helping pull you up, you're helping pull others up, and it is a great feeling and a satisfaction, and it's great to give back at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, you get more energized by well-meaning, decent people than you'll ever be able to energize yourself. So, you know, I can't stress having a really, you know, overreaching mentoring support group is massively important, particularly if you're running a business, because, you know, the old cliche, it's tough at the top. Well, it's true, right? I mean, you know, when we're having a bad day, we've got to get on stage still, and we've got to do the acting, and we've got to be the social court jesters, and it is difficult, and sometimes you just don't feel like that, so you need to surround yourself with people that you can go to when you're having a bad day. Yeah,
love that, Rob. Love that, Rob. So what's next for you, for Brightstar? What's the next 10 years looking like? Is it still back of a fag packet, or have you mapped it out?
No, I mean, sadly now the business is too big and has too many professional corporate investors for me to be a back of a fag packet, even if perhaps I would want to be. So we are partly owned by a PE house as well, and you know, we have some very interesting plans, certainly over the next 5 years, in order to continue our market dominance and grow it up a step. So, you know, I'm running out of a little bit of space on my runway now in terms of my age. So I've probably got a good 4 to 5 years left in me, but I'm surrounded by people that are more your age and younger, Gary, that have got a lot more energy than I've got, that I'm going to have in years to come, that are able to take the baton for when it's time to call me a day. So call a day, not call me a day. It's a bit of a strange So, you know, I love this industry. I really like most of the people in it. Not everyone, but most of the people in it, and it's really been very kind to me. And I know that I've helped, you know, many thousands of people into home ownership, and that's hugely gratifying. I've allowed them. I haven't allowed them. I've assisted them in getting that social mobility that I talked about earlier. You know, I'm able to employ people and have the meritocracy again that I talked about earlier. And I don't know, when my final moment on this planet is here, I'm confident I can look back at my life and gone, you know, it wasn't easy. It wasn't always straightforward. There was some definite downs as well as ups. But actually, I've had a good life, and I've done the best all the time that I could have done. And I think I'll die a man with a smile on my face, thinking that, that there's a bit of legacy in terms of a decent memory. So I think that's all of us, any of us could want, you know, leave a bit for the next generation, do the right thing in terms of leadership. And the thing is now, well, I'd finally say we are now the group that 25 years ago I looked at and said, oh God, you know, one day, you know, I'm never going to be like them. They're the leaders. They're the guys that are, you know, setting the bar. They're the guys that are setting the direction of flight. And that's now us. So now we have responsibility for the direction of flight and the heritage of this industry, to do the right thing, to make sure that there is an industry for the next generation of advisors and financial services people that come through and make our sector even better than it is now.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's a great way to think of the future. And do you think we're safe going into the future with robo-advisor coming along? Do you think it's a specialist market world that's going to thrive and rather than just survive?
Listen, to your self-employed clients out there, any of them that have perhaps tried a bit of robo-advice will love to deal with Gary Dass and his business. I think if you are in the small percentage of people that are, you know, low loan to value, nice employed, good salary, no issue whatsoever, robo-advice, perfect. But we're talking about a very, very small percentage of the market. So I don't think there's ever been a time where mortgage intermediaries have been more important than they are today, particularly in a post-COVID environment. And that just bears out with the number of the percentage of market that intermediaries are taking versus lender direct. So if you're a customer that wants a mortgage, you need to go and see a mortgage intermediary. You'd be madder than I am not to do that, and I'm really mad. So you would want to do that.
So just to finish off then, a few little things that are just simple questions, but give good answers generally. What's kind of one thing you wish you had known when you first started out that's obviously would be valuable to others listening in?
I often think about that. It's a good question. Not everything someone says they always mean. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
So sometimes you just need to take what people tell you as not being gospel and understand the angle that they might have. Pinch
of salt, especially if it's written in an email or a text message. I think that's they get so many misconstrued all the time. And what's
I hear people say, well, it must be because they told me it was. It's like, okay.
And what's been your biggest challenge and the biggest lesson from it, again, that others can potentially learn from?
Going from a business that originated £150 million a month in July 2007 to a business that originated £4 million a month 15 months later. That was the global financial crisis, was the mother of all recessions for anyone that was working in that environment. And, you know, just purely going from the top of the highest mountain to the lowest valley almost instantly. I'm not saying that COVID is straightforward in comparison, because I don't run a pub or an airline or a hospitality business, and to those people it's significantly more difficult than I've got and you've got now. But we've got more support now than we've ever had. So that gave me great wings to get through COVID-19.
And that's what was kind of your biggest lesson from that time, or how did you manage to come out of the blocks again, kind of sprinting, I suppose?
Try not to have any debt as much as you can. Try and hold as much cash as you can. Understand that when the sun is shining, that's the time to repair your roof. And never ever believe that any market will always be bullish forever, because it won't be. And that's it really. Just be cautious but positive about the future, and understand that when times are hard, you know, the one thing that will get you through it is cash in the bank.
Yeah, perfect. And then last but by no means least, in terms of Brightstar and yourself, what's if people wanted to get in contact with you or contact Brightstar, why would they do that? How can they do that? What would you advise?
So that's a nice lead. Thank you, Gary. So brightstarhub.co.uk is the website. Everything that anyone would need is on there. Contact details, what we do, how we do it, etc. Give the team a call on whatever inquiry you've got within lending, and we'll see what we can do to help you. But obviously, if you're self-employed first and you're viewing this on Gary Dess's website, you need to call Gary first.
Oh, thanks, Rob. And if anybody wants to contact you directly, do you have a LinkedIn or any social media channels?
Yeah, of course. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm also at Rub Jupp on Twitter. Just reach out. I'm here. rob@brightstarhub.co.uk is my email address. Just reach out. I'll always come back to anyone and everyone eventually.
Yep. So if obviously you're listening to this or you're watching now, make sure you go and reach out to Rob. Say if you like the episode, what the best thing was, what you preferred. You know, it's always good to hear great feedback and to hear your feedback, obviously, on listening to this and seeing this if you're in the Financial Pro community, where we've been live streaming some of these episodes. So if you want to come and connect with more financial services professionals, that's a free Facebook group, Financial Pro community. You can just do so. But Rob, this is the Financial Pro podcast. I came up with the brand Pro because I believe perseverance leads to results, which creates opportunity. But what does Pro mean to you?
Well, I think a pro is that you are top of your game, right? And that's my view. You're professional. You are getting paid to do something for a living, that you are top of your game. So pro is A1, top quartile, best at what you can be. Love that. Thank you very much indeed for coming and sharing your wisdom with us today. It's been I've enjoyed it. I've got a few little insights, and thanks very much for your time. Pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Gary. All the best to you.